Hi everyone. So here is the moment you've all been waiting for, the instructions for our second big assignment. Yay! I know you're all so excited about assignments. So look, this one is going to be somewhat similar to the first one, but a little bit different at the same time. So the same goals are there, the opportunity to go back and revisit your quiz answers, and the idea is to engage in deeper learning. So I've been reading the results of the first one, and I'm seeing people are putting some thought into things, and so that's a great process you're all going through, and you seem to be learning from it. So that's great. We're going to do a bit more of that than last time. So part one is a bit bigger this time, and part two is a little bit smaller, and part two is different this time. So instead of kind of going through and picking out some of those review questions, I'm giving you a list of sections to read, and they're all things that are a bit beyond what we've been learning, in the sense that you get to read about some real world research that's happening to give you a bit of an idea of how anthropology is actually applied. All right. So, and again, the same kind of typical academic skills, reading comprehension, writing stuff, so that I can give some people feedback on that. So part one. This time I arranged things a bit differently. I'm trying to make a bit more sense. So there's a brief summary of what parts 1 and 2 are here. So again, part 1's almost identical, except this time you're doing 4 questions instead of 2, one from each of the 4 weeks between weeks 5 and 8, so 5, 6, 7, and 8, and there's complete instructions on page 2, and again, I'm providing you with those same worksheets. They start on page 3, so we're going to go down there soon. For part 2, as I've mentioned, you're given a list of case studies from the text boxes in our textbook that have to do with anthropological research, and you'll pick one that you find interesting. They cover pretty much the 4 fields. So depending on your interests, you can pick one, and you can read all of them, of course. But for this assignment, you're only asked to pick one, and then you'll write a paragraph based on it. And the complete instructions with the list of choices are on page 7 after the worksheets for part 1. So I tried to make it a bit more sequential, so you don't necessarily have to do this back and forth thing in the document. I'm always trying new ways of doing things, so there you go. You can let me know which format you prefer. So here it's the same assessment criteria and submission instructions, and so this time it's like right at the beginning. So please, before you get started, have a look at these, and if there's anything here you don't understand, please drop me a line and let me know. I don't know what you mean by things following in a logical order, or just let me know what it is about this that confuses you, preferably more than a day before the assignment is due. Some people get mixed up here. I just want to highlight this. When I say no direct quotations, that's the stuff that goes in quotation marks, and that's when you're using things word for word from the text. All your stuff for this assignment should be paraphrased, meaning you're putting things in your own words, and that's a really important skill to have in academia. I know it's tempting sometimes to just lift a quote out because it's said in a way that you feel you can't do, but I'd rather see something that's imperfect than something that's word for word, because anybody can just lift things word for word out of a text. It doesn't mean you understand what it's saying, right? So in more advanced essays, quotations can be useful in certain contexts, but you don't want to overuse them. They're like salt, all right? So a little bit can spice things up, but you don't want to put too many of them. So we're not using direct quotations. Some of you did in the first one, most of you didn't, but a few of you did. So a quotation is different from a citation, and if you're new, this is your first year, you might not have been exposed yet to, like some of you were asking me about APA. It's the citation style that we use in the social sciences, and if you've done research methods, then by now you've been exposed to APA for sure. And again, it's not mandatory in this assignment, but if you want to practice your APA, you can, and I'll give you feedback on it. I'm only going to require it in the final paper, and I'll give you more resources for it when the time comes. But for now, You know, I'm just mentioning APA here in line with the quotation thing, is that a quotation and a citation are different. A citation is that thing we do in APA or MLA, or there are all these different styles. We use APA where you have the author name and the year of publication and the page number, that kind of thing. So that's different. A quotation is something that's lifted word for word, but you put the quotations, and then you also include the citation to show where you got this. So we're not doing any of that here, okay? So you're just putting everything in your own words. If paraphrasing is still challenging for you, there's a video here, and yeah, if these are things that are kind of, we're getting into plagiarism territory. If I see that you're kind of really haven't done it on purpose, usually if it's pretty bad, I'll kind of maybe just give a 0 to that section, or you know, it really depends. Usually we'll have a conversation about it before it goes further. So again, if you're confused about that, let me know. Spelling and grammar count, but there's a scale here that you can look at, and you know, get into the habit of proofreading your own work, you know. And if you know you struggle with the English language for a variety of reasons, the folks at the Reading Center, they're there to help, okay? They're professionals, and they're really good at helping students understand what issues are with writing and to help you improve your writing. So I strongly encourage you to go there if it's something that you struggle with. So again, submission, this is, well, there's more than 2 pages here, so I'll have to come in and change this. So you fill out the worksheets on pages, starting on page 3, so 3, 4, 5, and 6, and part 2 is at the end of that. You can remove the instructions from the first 2 pages. I don't need to re-see them when you submit your documents, so everything that comes before, like all of this, you can delete everything, all of this up until that first worksheet for part 1, all right, because I don't need them. It's okay if you don't, but it's just more scrolling, and it doesn't need to be there once you finish the assignment. And then you're going to upload the document where you got it on Leia and Assignments in Dropbox, like you did last time. Here is a reminder of the late penalty. Again, extensions are needed. Contact me more than 24 hours before the due date, please. So here are the more detailed instructions for part 1. So again, this is identical to what you did in assignment 1, except that last time I gave you more free range, right? Because it was kind of an experiment. I wanted to see if it was useful to students, and from what I've been reading, it seems to be quite useful. So this time you're choosing 4 questions, 1 from each quiz from weeks 5 to 8. All right, so you'll go into each of those and pick a question from each and do the same thing as last time. You just go through the worksheet and plug in your information. Here again are the, you know, how to get to the old quizzes so that you can look at them. So that's all here. And again, so here is a description of the task that you have, and you know, again, try to pick ones that you maybe had a hard time with, that you got wrong and you were confused about why you got them wrong, or maybe you understood as you were doing it, like when you saw the other, you know, maybe you put in a rationale, and then when you saw the other rationales, you're like, oh yeah, and you got it, but then that first time maybe you struggled with it. Or if you didn't struggle with any of them because, you know, you're into this and you're not having, like, this has all been easy for you, and your rationales have all been similar to the expert rationale, then just go with ones that you find more interesting. Okay, and here's the worksheet. So for part 1, so chosen question 1, copy paste it. Here there were a few students who were confused last time, so I was more specific. What was your original response and rationale? Some people wrote to me, is it the one I wrote or the one I chose? It's your original one, the one you wrote, not the one you chose later. Okay, that's your original response, yours, your original rationale, not other people's, yours. That's what I want to see. And it's not to judge you. There are no points for this. It's just to kind of see your process, right? The points start here when you're looking at, okay, comparing your rationale to the expert rationale. How close was it? What kinds of information were missing? Elaborate here a bit. Like, some people just wrote this one, like 4 or 5 lines. Mine was missing information. Okay, well, what kinds of information, right? And then here, again, depending on if you're working with stuff that you struggled with and that you think your rationale needs improvement, or you got the wrong answer twice, you're having a hard time with it, go back through the textbook, go back through the notes, the slides, whatever you find useful, and produce a new rationale. And again, like I said the first time, you can use the expert rationale as a guideline, but you need to put things in your own words and refer to things from the textbook. And a lot of you forgot here, I'll highlight this in yellow actually, to put the page number where you got the information, okay? If you feel your rationale, again, so for those of you who are like, well, this has been fairly easy for you, your rationales are all, similar to the expert rationale, maybe you even went a bit above and beyond in your own rationales, you can think about, because one good strategy for learning in a deeper way is thinking how we can turn around and explain things to a complete novice. So maybe you have a younger sibling at home, or older siblings, or parents, or whoever, a partner, or friend, who's not in this course and they want to know about what you've been learning. How would you explain it to them in this kind of vulgarized way, in a way of making things easier for a layperson who's outside the field to understand? So you can take that approach if you're like, well, I didn't have trouble with any of these questions. And it still allows you to learn in a deeper way, because when we have to teach something, we learn it deeper. So same thing for your second question, third question, fourth question. So you have 4 pages that are identical here, all right? And then you get to part 2. And so again, this time, instead of looking at the review questions in the different chapter, I thought it would be kind of more interesting for you to be exposed to case studies in anthropology, where it's usually a researcher, an anthropologist in one of the subfields who's talking about some kind of research that they've done, and they're usually trying to prove an argument. So you have a bunch to choose for here. So depending on what you're interested in, those of you who are into linguistics, we haven't covered that in depth yet, but we did learn about what it was in the beginning. So, and if you're into like sci-fi cons and things like that, that's can kind of be interesting for you. Those are, if you're interested in different cultural ideas about pregnancy and giving birth, those of you, and this one here, so there are a couple of them where you have 2 shorter ones. So most of them are 1 page, pretty much, okay? It's like those text boxes, and they're about 1 page long. And here, so for C, you have 2 that are about a half page, so 2 of them together is about the equivalent, and same thing for K, all right? And one of them is a bit longer, so I'm imagining a lot of you are not going to want to give yourself that extra reading, but if you're really into this is a nice one actually about, again, like this biocultural stuff we talk about and how culture influences interpretation in science. So, just kind of look at these. The titles kind of give a little bit of information, but sometimes they're not obvious, so you can kind of go through and read the first paragraph of a few different ones and see which one you'll choose. And then, after you've made your choice, you go ahead and read that text box, and you'll write a short, medium length paragraph, about 150 to 200 words. I'm not a stickler for the words. This is a rough guideline. Some students manage to say a lot in fewer words, and some students need more. So if you're like at 140 words or at 220, you're not going to lose points. Just don't write a full essay, and don't write don't waste space and try to trick me by having this long introduction and then having 1 line of substance and then a big conclusion. Like, no, you don't need an intro or conclusion. Get straight to the point. So basically your paragraph should respond to these 2 questions here. I guess this part is not really a question, so I'll change the format here. So what is the text trying to prove? So, the author of that little text box, usually they're making an argument, or they're explaining some research that they've done, or, so it's kind of like, well, what is the text trying to prove or explain? How does do the authors, because sometimes there's more than one, support their point, that they're making or explaining? In other words, if it's a case where they're explaining their research, what kind of research did they do? What were their results, right? That's how they're supporting their point. Or if it's not so much about a specific research project, a couple of them are not, it's just kind of more general explanations based on research or different kinds of research. And well, what are their main arguments or explanations that they're making to prove their point. And so your response here for B should be kind of a mix of explanation and factual evidence in cases where there is factual evidence that they're bringing up. So it's really a case by case thing. And so if you're reading one and you're not sure how to go about it, you can talk to me. All right. And so, again, options C and K, you've got two shorter texts. So here how you would answer the question, you can focus a bit more on one than the other, but then what you would do to show that you read both is just have a line or two in your paragraph that shows maybe that there's a connection between the two. And there is in both cases, because here you've got two applications of archaeology that are kind of aiming the general population. Right, so you can kind of go based on that. Okay, both of these are about reaching beyond academia. And here for C, you've got ideas about culture and interpretation of genetic facts, and then you've got ethnocentrism, which is also about interpreting things that happen in the world. So you can find some little connections there. Again, you can delete the instructions once you've written your paragraph, and the very last instruction is to go back and look at the criteria and submission instructions, because I'm not expecting you to remember them all, but before you upload the document, make sure that go back and check to make sure your responses meet the criteria and that you remember the submission criteria as well. So that's it. So I hope that this is both productive in terms of helping you learn in a deeper way the material we've been dealing with, and also giving you a bit more of a taste of more concretely what do anthropologists actually do, right? So as usual, if you have any questions, just let me know. You know how to reach me.